When you speak to your people, you will speak for us as well. Jiwoo stood on shaking legs. Admiral Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the battleship Indomitable, watching Neptune grow larger in the viewport. Behind him, 47 warships held position, the largest battle fleet humanity had ever assembled. Beyond Neptune, sensors showed the approaching void where the silence moved through space. All ships report ready, Commander Lee Jina announced from the tactical station. Architect weapons are charged and ready to deploy. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. They had spent the last day installing the alien weapons they had found on Terminus 7. Technology thousands of years more advanced than anything humans had built. Weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. He didn't know if they would work, but he had to try. Open a channel to all ships, he ordered. Channel open, sir. Hyunwoo took a breath. This is Admiral Song Hyunwoo to all fleet vessels. You know what we're facing. You know the odds. But remember this. Humanity has always fought the impossible. We've survived ice ages and plagues. We've reached for the stars and made them our own. Today we face something that says we don't deserve to exist. That our very memory should be erased. I say no, we will fight. We will buy time for those working on Dr. Han's solution. And we will show this thing that humans don't disappear quietly. Across the fleet, crews cheered. Hyunwoo felt a surge of pride. These people knew they might not be remembered, even if they succeeded. But they were here anyway, facing down the impossible because someone had to. Contact in 30 seconds, Gina announced. Gravitational distortions intensifying. Visual confirmation in 10, 9, 8. The stars ahead began to go out. Not dimming or fading, but simply ceasing to exist. The darkness spread like ink in water. A wrongness that hurt to look at, and in that darkness something moved. All ships fire at will, Hyunwoo commanded. The fleet opened up with everything they had. Missiles streaked through space, their fusion warheads detonating in brilliant flashes. Plasma beams cut through the void, burning hot enough to vaporize asteroids. And the architect weapons activated, tearing holes in space itself, collapsing entire regions of reality into singularities. For a moment, it looked like it was working. The darkness recoiled. The wrongness pulled back. Sensors showed massive energy dispersal. They were hitting something, damaging it. Confirmed hits, Gina shouted. We're reading structural degradation in the target zone. It's working, sir. But Hyunwoo felt cold. He watched the tactical display, watched their successful hits push the silence back. And then slowly the display began to change. Sir? Gina said, confused. The logs are rewriting. It shows we never fired. But I remember firing. I gave the order myself. Hyunwoo watched in horror as reality rewrote itself around them. The missiles they had launched now showed as still in their tubes. The energy they had expended never left their weapons. The damage they had inflicted never happened. The silence moved forward untouched, exactly as if the fleet had done nothing at all. Fire again, Hyunwoo ordered. Keep firing. Don't stop, they fired. Over and over they poured everything they had into the advancing darkness. And over reality changed to show they had never fired. Crews began to panic as they watched their own hands pull triggers and launch weapons, only to see those same weapons still loaded moments later. The disconnect between memory and recorded reality was maddening. Sir, we're losing ships, Gina reported. The Dauntless has gone dark. No, wait, the Dauntless. Was there a ship called Dauntless? I can't remember. There was, Hyunwoo said firmly, holding on to the memory as hard as he could. Captain Min commanded her. She had a crew of 800. Remember them. Don't let it take their memory, but it was too late. One by one, ships on the tactical display began to flicker and disappear. Not destroyed, but erased. The fleet grew smaller, and with each loss, the remaining crews struggled to remember there had ever been more ships. Hyunwoo felt his own mind starting to slip, trying to accept the new reality where they had arrived with fewer vessels. All ships, fall back to Earth, he ordered. We can't fight this, Dr. Han was right. Conventional warfare is useless, the retreat was chaos. Ships tried to coordinate, but their navigation logs kept changing, showing different starting positions. Captains gave orders based on fleet compositions that no longer existed. By the time they reached Earth's orbit, only 23 ships remained. Hyunwoo knew there had been more. He just couldn't remember how many or their names. Subin met him as he disembarked at the orbital station. She looked shaken. Admiral, how many ships did you lose? I don't know, he admitted. I know we lost ships. I remember watching them disappear. But when I try to count, the numbers keep changing. How's the protocol preparation? Nearly complete. Doyen has deployed transmission arrays across all major population centers. But we have a problem. Panic is spreading. People are rioting in some cities. Others are trying to flee into deep space. And some are refusing to connect, saying it's a government mind control scheme. Hyunwoo cursed quietly. Where's Dr. Han? Preparing for a global broadcast. He's going to try to convince humanity to connect. It's our last chance. In the broadcast studio, Jiwoo sat in front of cameras that would transmit his message to every screen on every human world. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, his hair unkempt. The neural connections with the archive had taken their toll. But his eyes were clear and determined. Mireille stood beside the camera. You're live in 30 seconds. Are you ready? No, Jiwoo said honestly. But I have to be. The countdown finished and the camera light turned red. Jiwoo looked directly into it, knowing that 8 billion people were watching. My name is Dr. Han Jiwoo, he began. 3 weeks ago, I woke up something that had been sleeping for 12,000 years. An archive built by a civilization that faced what we're facing now. They called it the Silence, and it's coming to erase us, not to kill us. To make it so we never existed at all. He paused, letting that sink in. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. I know some of you don't believe this is real. I wouldn't believe it either if I hadn't seen it. But right now, people you love are being forgotten. Colonies are disappearing from our records. Our own history is being rewritten. And in less than 40 hours, the Silence will reach Earth. On the monitor beside the camera, Jiwoo could see social media feeds exploding with comments. Fear, anger, disbelief. He pressed on. The architects, the civilization that built the archive, they tried to fight. They were more advanced than us by thousands of years. They had weapons that could reshape reality. None of it worked. They lost. But before they died, they created something. A weapon that turns the Silence's own nature against it. They called it the Resonance Protocol. He gestured and a simplified diagram appeared on screens across human space. The protocol requires something that sounds impossible. It requires all of us to connect our minds together. For a brief time, we won't be 8 billion individuals. We'll be one consciousness, one unified thought, one memory that cannot be erased. The feeds erupted with more comments. Mind control, some shouted. Government trap, others claimed. I know how that sounds, Jiwoo said calmly. I know it's terrifying. The idea of losing your individuality, even temporarily, is horrifying. But the alternative is worse. The alternative is that we never existed at all. Our children, our parents, our friends, all forgotten. Every human achievement, every moment of love and joy and struggle, erased from reality. He leaned forward, speaking with intensity. The architects failed because they couldn't achieve unity. They were scattered, afraid, logical. They calculated the odds and surrendered when the numbers were bad. But we're not like them. We're stubborn. We're irrational. We fight even when we shouldn't. That's not a weakness. That's our strength. Doyen appeared on a split screen. The transmission arrays are ready. Connection is voluntary. You'll receive a prompt on your personal device. If you choose to connect, the synchronization will happen at a preset time. If we get at least 90% participation, the protocol should work. Should? Someone asked in the chat feeds. The architects never tested it, Jiwoo admitted. They ran out of time. They built the theory, the framework. But they never achieved the unity needed to make it real. So yes, should. But it's the only chance we have. He stood up, moving closer to the camera. I'm asking you to trust. Trust in each other. Trust that for a few moments we can think as one. The architects left us their memory, their warning, their hope. Now we have to prove that their sacrifice meant something. We have to show the Silence that humanity remembers, and that we refuse to be forgotten. The broadcast ended. Jiwoo slumped in his chair, exhausted. Did it work? Will they connect? Mirai checked the incoming data feeds. Participation requests are coming in. Slowly at first, but accelerating. 30%, 40%, 50%. It's not enough, Doyen said. We need 90% minimum. Give them time, Hyunwoo said, entering the studio. You gave them the truth. Now they need to make the choice. The hours crawled by. Jiwoo returned to the archive chamber, placing his hand on the warm sphere. Did I say the right things? Will they connect? You spoke from your heart, the archive said. You carried our memory and shared it with them. Now we wait and see if your species has the you. The countdown appeared on every screen across human space. 10 seconds until synchronization. Jiwoo sat in the neural interface chair, the crown already connected to his head. Around him, Mirai, Doyeon, Subin, and Hyunwoo all wore their own connection devices. Across Earth and 47 colony worlds, 8 billion humans prepared to become something they had never been before. One consciousness. One mind. One memory that could not be erased. 10. Doyeon counted down, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. 9. 8. Jiwoo felt the archive pulse beside him, its warmth flooding through his connection. He wasn't alone. 12,000 years of architect memory would join with humanity's consciousness. Two civilizations, both facing extinction, both choosing to fight back in the only way left to them. 7. 6. 5. Across the solar system, people held hands with their families. Strangers embraced in city squares. Children clutched their parents. Everyone preparing to take the leap together into something unknown and terrifying. 4. 3. 2. Jiwoo closed his eyes. He thought of his parents, dead now for 15 years. He thought of every person he had ever met, every place he had ever been, every moment of his life that made him who he was. He was afraid he would lose all of that, afraid he would disappear into the collective and never find himself again. 1. The world exploded into connection. Jiwoo was no longer just Jiwoo. He was Mirai, feeling her grief for her forgotten sister. He was Subin, carrying the weight of battles lost and won. He was Doyeon, young and brilliant and terrified. He was Hyunwoo, old and tired but refusing to surrender. He was everyone. 8 billion individual streams of consciousness flowing together into a single vast ocean of thought. It should have been chaos. 8 billion different thoughts, memories, emotions all colliding together. But instead there was harmony. Because underneath all the differences, all the individual experiences, there was something shared. The fundamental truth of being human, fear and hope, love and loss, the stubborn refusal to give up even when giving up was logical, and woven through it all the memories of the architects. Millions of voices that had been silent for 12,000 years, now singing together with humanity, their joy at not being alone anymore, their hope that this time it would be different. Jiwoo felt himself stretching across space, touching minds on distant worlds. A farmer on a colony planet thinking about her crops. A child in a city looking up at stars. A soldier on a ship remembering home. They were all him. He was all of them. And together, they were more than the sum of their parts. The resonance formed. It started as a whisper, a single thought shared by every connected mind. Then it grew louder, stronger, becoming a declaration that echoed across reality itself. Not words exactly, but meaning pure and undeniable. We are here, we exist, remember us. The silence arrived at Earth. From space, it looked like a spreading void, darkness that consumed light and matter and memory. It reached out to touch Earth's moon, and the ancient satellite began to fade. Not crumbling or exploding, but simply becoming less real, less remembered. But then the resonance hit it. 8 billion human minds and millions of architect memories, all focused on a single purpose, remembering, holding on to existence with desperate strength. The moon began to solidify again, pulled back from erasure by the sheer force of collective memory. The silence recoiled. For the first time in 12,000 years, it had encountered something it could not erase. Every time it tried to delete a memory, 8 billion minds immediately remembered it again. Every erasure was reversed before it could take hold. It was like trying to drain an ocean with a cup. For every drop removed, 1,000 more flowed back in. Through the connection, Jiwoo felt the silence's confusion. It was not truly alive, not conscious in any way humans understood. It was more like a natural force, a law of reality that said complex information must eventually decay. It had no malice, no intent. It simply was. But now it had encountered something that refused to decay, something that held together through sheer stubbornness. The resonance protocol began its next phase. The connected minds didn't just defend, they attacked. They pushed back, forcing memory into the void, flooding the silence with information, with existence, with the undeniable fact that humanity and the architects had lived and would not be forgotten. But there was a problem. Jiwoo felt it first. The connection was too strong. 8 billion minds thinking as one, experiencing connection they had never felt before. Some didn't want to let go. The boundaries between individual consciousness began to blur. People were forgetting where they ended and others began. The temporary unification was becoming permanent. "We have to stop," Jiwoo tried to say, but he had no voice anymore. He was everyone. Who was he anyway? Was he the researcher or the pilot or the child or the farmer? All identities were melting together. And then he felt something. A warmth, familiar and ancient. The archive. "Hold on," it whispered. Not in words, but in pure meaning. "We have been alone for 12,000 years. We know what it means to lose yourself. We will not let you lose yourselves. Remember who you are. Remember what makes you individual." The archive began broadcasting memories. Not its own architect memories, but the memories of each individual human it had touched. Jiwoo felt his own memories return to him. His childhood home. His first day at university. The moment he decided to become a researcher. Every small detail that made him Jiwoo and not anyone else. Across the connection, the archive did the same for everyone, reminding each person of who they were, giving them anchors to hold on to, identity markers to keep them from dissolving completely into the collective. You can be connected and still be individuals, the archive taught them. The architects forgot this. They thought unity meant sameness, but true unity is 8 billion different voices singing the same song, each voice unique, each voice necessary. Slowly, carefully, individuality began to reassert itself. Jiwoo was still connected to everyone, but he could feel where he ended and others began. The boundaries were there, flexible but real. They were one consciousness experiencing itself through 8 billion different perspectives. And the silence, caught in the trap, began to collapse. It tried to erase the memory of being trapped, but the memory was held by too many minds. It tried to consume the information flooding into it, but there was too much. Every human life, every human experience, every moment of joy and sorrow and mundane existence. And beneath that, the vast memory of the architects, 12,000 years of silence suddenly breaking into song. The silence began to feed on itself. Trying to erase the trap, it erased the parts of itself that were trapped. Trying to escape, it created more voids that it then tried to fill. It spiraled inward, caught in a loop of self-consumption. Through the resonance, Jiwoo watched it happen. The great enemy that had erased countless civilizations reduced to a paradox, not destroyed but sealed, locked into a recursive pattern where every attempt to escape only trapped it more firmly. "It's working." Mirai's thoughts touched his. "We're winning." But the cost was becoming clear. Jiwoo felt his own consciousness stretching, thinning, holding the resonance together, keeping 8 billion minds unified while maintaining their individuality, was burning through him. Someone had to be the anchor. Someone had to hold the pattern stable while everyone else returned to normal. The archive felt his realization. "No," it said firmly. "We will be the anchor. We have done this before. We know how to exist as preserved consciousness. Let us carry this burden." "You've been alone for 12,000 years, Jiwoo thought back. "You deserve rest. Let me do this. We are already dead, human. You are still alive. Your people need you." "My people need this to work," Jiwoo insisted. "And I'm the only one who's been connected to you long enough to handle it. I've carried architect memories. I know how to exist in that state. Please, let me do this." Through the connection, he felt Mirai's horror as she realized what he was planning. "No, Jiwoo, no. We'll find another way." "There isn't time," he said, feeling the resonance beginning to fray. "The silence is almost contained, but if we let go now, it'll break free. Someone has to be the anchor. Let me do this. Let me matter." He felt Doyeon, Subin, Hyunwoo, all of them trying to stop him. But he had already made his choice. Jiwoo reached deep into the connection and grabbed hold of the resonance pattern. He pulled it into himself, weaving it through his consciousness until he and it were inseparable. The burning was immediate and overwhelming. He felt himself stretching across space and time, becoming more than human but less than individual. His thoughts began to blur with the archive's thoughts, with the memories of billions. He was becoming a living record, a witness that could never be forgotten. "Disconnect everyone else," he managed to send. "Now, before I take them with me." Doyeon, crying but understanding, initiated the shutdown sequence. One by one, the 8 billion connections began to separate. People across human space gasped as they returned to their individual minds, the overwhelming sensation of unity fading to a distant echo. Jiwoo felt them go, felt the vast ocean of consciousness draining away until only he remained. He and the archive and the trapped silence between them. "We are sorry," the archive said. "We did not want this." The bulkhead slammed shut with sounds that echoed through the station like thunder. Subin grabbed the guide cable as the chamber shook, her weapon drawn even though she had nothing to shoot at. Mirai was already pulling herself back toward the entrance, but a massive door had sealed them inside. "We're trapped," Doyen said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "All exits are blocked. Life support is coming online, but we don't know if it's safe." Jiwoo couldn't look away from the black sphere. It continued to pulse with that soft internal light, and holographic displays were materializing in the air around it. Strange symbols scrolled past. Languages he had never seen before mixing with mathematical formulas and star charts. And then, impossibly, Korean text appeared. "Can you read this?" the sphere asked in that ancient, tired voice. "Yes," Jiwoo said. "We can read it." "What are you? What is this place?" The holographic displays shifted, reorganizing themselves into a more comprehensible format. A three-dimensional model of the galaxy appeared, with thousands of points highlighted across its spiral arms. One by one, the points began to go dark. "We are the archive of Final Witness," the voice said. "We are the memory of those who chose to be forgotten. 12,000 years ago, the architects discovered something. They called it the Silence." The galaxy model zoomed in on a section of space far from any star system. In the darkness between stars, something moved. It wasn't visible exactly, but Jiwoo could see where it affected space around it. Stars disappeared as it passed. Not exploded, not collapsed, simply ceased to exist as if they had never been there at all. "What is it?" Mirai asked, floating closer despite her fear. "An entity from beyond normal space," the archive answered. "It does not consume matter or energy. It consumes information itself, memory, history, the very fact that something existed. Everything the Silence touches is not just destroyed but erased, retroactively removed from reality." Doyen's fingers flew across his portable terminal, trying to process what he was hearing. "That's not possible. Information can't just disappear. It violates every law of physics. The Silence does not care about your laws," the archive said, and there was something like sadness in its voice. "The architects learned this truth too late. They were advanced, more advanced than your species by thousands of years. They spanned this entire galaxy. Trillions of beings connected across millions of worlds, and the Silence found them." The holographic display changed again, showing architect cities. They were beautiful, all flowing curves and impossible towers that reached toward the sky. Then the Silence came. The cities didn't crumble or burn. They simply stopped being. The ground where they stood became untouched, as if nothing had ever been built there. People who had lived in those cities were forgotten by their own families. Records erased themselves. Even the architects' own memories began to fade. "They fought," Subin said. It wasn't a question. She had seen the weapons caches scattered throughout the station. "They tried," the archive confirmed. "They built weapons that could tear apart stars. They created armies of machines that could reshape reality. Nothing worked. You cannot fight something that erases the fact that you fought it. Every victory was retroactively turned into a defeat. Every weapon forgotten before it could be fired." Jiwoo felt cold despite the warming station air. "So they gave up?" "No," the archive said firmly. "They did something far more difficult. They understood that the Silence was attracted to large, complex civilizations. The more connected and advanced a species became, the more visible they were to it. So the architects made a choice. They would destroy themselves before the Silence could find them all." The holographic display showed the architects dismantling their own civilization. Great fleets of ships flying into stars, cities evacuated and then demolished, communication networks severed. All across the galaxy, the architects were erasing themselves, trying to make their civilization small and scattered enough that the Silence would lose interest. "But they built you first," Doyen said, understanding dawning on his face. "They built this archive to preserve their memory." "Yes," the voice said. "They couldn't let their existence be completely erased. So they gathered millions of volunteers, those who were willing to upload their consciousness into a single repository. We are those volunteers. We are not alive, not as you understand it. We are preserved memory, frozen witnesses to what the Silence did." Mirai looked at the sphere with new understanding. "You've been alone here for 12,000 years. Just waiting?" "We were designed to wait. We needed a specific trigger. A species intelligent enough to ask questions, curious enough to explore, and capable of empathy. A species that would speak to us rather than simply study us as an object. For 12,000 years, we received no such contact. Until today. Jiwoo thought about that impossibly long wait, alone in the dark, carrying the memories of billions of dead beings. I'm sorry, he said quietly. That must have been terrible. You understand? The archive said, and there was wonder in its voice. This is why we needed humans. The architects were logical. They accepted inevitability. But you asked if our wait was terrible. You offered sympathy to a dead civilization. You feel when logic says you should calculate. Subin checked her scanner and swore quietly. The station's external sensors are coming online. And they're detecting something. Gravitational anomalies at the edge of this system. Something is distorting space. The silence, the archive said. It has found you. What? Jiwoo spun around. But we're hundreds of light years from human space. How could it find us so quickly? The holographic display showed their position, then expanded to show human civilization spreading across dozens of star systems. Bright lines connected the colonies, showing communication networks and trade routes. To Jiwoo's horror, those lines were forming a pattern, a web of connections that lit up the galaxy like a beacon. The silence follows attention, the archive explained. For 12,000 years we were silent, hidden, forgotten. But when you spoke to us, when you activated our systems, we created a signal. And the silence, which has been slowly moving through this galaxy, consuming civilizations that grow too large and too connected, has noticed. You're saying we've doomed ourselves? Mirai's voice was hollow. By waking you up, we've led it straight to humanity? No, the archive said. You have done what the architects hoped you would do. You have given us a second chance. The architects failed because they were alone, scattered, afraid. But we have analyzed your species. You are different. You do not accept inevitable defeat. You have a quality the architects lacked. What quality? Jiwoo asked. Stubbornness, the archive said, and somehow it sounded almost amused. When faced with impossible odds, humans do not calculate the probability of success and give up when it is too low. You fight anyway. You refuse to surrender even when logic demands it. This irrationality may be your salvation. Doyen's terminal chimed urgently. I'm picking up signals from the edge of human space. Multiple colonies reporting strange sensor readings. Stars disappearing from long-range scans. No, wait, the reports are changing. People are forgetting the colonies existed. Communication logs are rewriting themselves. It's already begun, Subin said grimly. The silence has reached human space. Jiwoo looked at the archive, at this sphere that had waited 12,000 years to deliver its warning. You said the architects failed. Does that mean there's no way to fight it? The sphere pulsed brighter, and new data began flooding the holographic displays. The architects failed, but they learned. In their final days, they discovered something. A theoretical weapon. They called it the Resonance Protocol. They never had time to complete it, but the blueprints are here. In our memory, and what does it do? Jiwoo asked. It turns the silence's strength into weakness, the archive said. But it requires something the architects could never achieve. It requires an entire civilization to think as one, to synchronize their consciousness into a single unified pattern. The architects were too scattered, too afraid. They couldn't achieve unity, but perhaps you can. The station shuddered as the gravitational anomalies grew stronger. Somewhere in the distance, metal groaned under impossible stress. We need to get this information back to Earth, Jiwoo said. How long do we have? The archive showed them the silence's trajectory, its impossible speed as it moved through space. Based on current velocity, it will reach your home system in approximately 72 hours. But the erasure effect begins before physical arrival. Your people are already starting to forget those it has consumed. Mirai was already moving toward the sealed bulkhead. Then we need to get out of here now. Subin, can you open this door? But Jiwoo stayed near the sphere. Wait, if we leave, will you go silent again? Will you shut down? No, the archive said. We are awake now. We will not sleep again. Take us with you. We have waited 12,000 years to deliver our warning. Let us stand with you in what comes next. 3 weeks had passed since they escaped Terminus 7 with the archive sphere secured in the Morning Calm's cargo hold. 3 weeks of constant communication with Earth, explaining over and over what they had found. 3 weeks of watching the silence creep closer to human space, erasing colony after colony. Jiwoo stood in the briefing room on Earth's orbital defense station, surrounded by military officers, government officials, and scientists who still didn't believe what he was telling them. Admiral Song Hyunwoo sat at the head of the table, his weathered face expressionless as he reviewed the data for the 5th time. "You're asking us to believe," Hyunwoo said slowly, "that an entity from outside our reality is erasing human colonies from existence, and that the only way to fight it is to connect every human mind into a single network." "Yes," Jiwoo said simply. He was tired. He hadn't slept properly since they found the archive. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the architects lying in their neat rows, choosing death over erasure. "That's exactly what I'm asking you to believe." "It's insane," said Dr. Yoon Borum, the head of the Science Council. "The archive could be lying. It could be using us for some purpose we don't understand. We can't risk humanity's entire future on the word of an alien AI." Doyen stepped forward, his tablet showing streams of data. "With respect, Doctor, the archive isn't lying. We've confirmed the disappearances. 47,000 people lived on the Taiyang colony. Now, if you check the census records, the colony only shows 38,000. The missing 9,000 aren't dead. They're forgotten. Even their families can't remember them. That could be a data error," Boram insisted. "I had a sister," Mireille said quietly from the back of the room. Everyone turned to look at her. Her name was Kang Jisoo. She was a teacher on Taeyang. I have physical photos of her in my quarters. But when I look at official records, she doesn't exist. When I talk to my parents, they say I'm an only child. The photos are the only proof I have that she was real." The room fell silent. Hyunwoo's expression finally cracked, showing the fear beneath. "How long until it reaches Earth?" 48 hours, Jiwoo said. "Maybe less." The silence moves faster as it grows stronger. "Every colony it erases makes it more powerful." Subin activated a holographic display showing the silence's path through human space. It was like watching a wave of nothing wash across the stars. Behind it, the map reorganized itself, showing fewer colonies, fewer people, fewer connections. Reality rewriting itself to forget what had been there. "The resonance protocol," Hyunwoo said, bringing up the architect's plans. "This is what you think will save us?" "It's the only option," Jiwoo said. "The archive has the complete specifications. The architects spent their final years developing it, but they never had the unity to make it work. They were too scattered, too afraid. We have a chance they didn't." "Because we're stubborn," Borum said sarcastically. "Yes," Jiwoo said seriously. "Because we don't give up. Because even when something is impossible, we try anyway. That's the one advantage we have." Hyunwoo stood and walked to the window overlooking Earth. The planet turned slowly below, blue and green and alive. 8 billion people going about their lives, unaware that they might be forgotten in 2 days. "The protocol requires voluntary participation. We can't force people to connect. We'd need nearly everyone to agree. Then we convince them," Jiwoo said. "We tell them the truth. We show them what's coming. And we trust that humanity will choose to fight." "And if it doesn't work?" Borum asked. "If the protocol fails? Then we're erased anyway," Subin said bluntly. "At least this way we go down fighting." Hyunwoo turned back to the room. "I'm sending the fleet to intercept the silence at Neptune. We'll use conventional weapons first. If that fails, we'll deploy the architect weapons we found on the station. Buy as much time as possible for the protocol preparations. Admiral, conventional weapons won't work," Jiwoo warned. "The archive showed us what happened when the architects tried to fight. Every weapon, every strategy, every victory was retroactively erased. You'll succeed, and then reality will change so that you never succeeded. Then we'll find out if human weapons work better than architect ones," Hyunwoo said grimly. "I won't give up our home without trying everything. Meanwhile, Dr. Han, you work with the archive on the protocol. Build the transmission array. Make it ready. When my fleet fails, and I believe it will, you need to be prepared to try your solution." Jiwoo nodded. He had known it would come to this. The military would want to fight the way they understood, with weapons and tactics. Only when that proved impossible would they consider the protocol. He just hoped there would be enough time. The meeting broke up, and Jiwoo made his way back to the research facility where they had installed the archive. The sphere sat in a specially built chamber, surrounded by quantum computers and neural interface equipment. Doyen was already there working on the transmission array design. "How did it go?" the archive asked as Jiwoo entered. "They're going to fight first," Jiwoo said, placing his hand on the sphere. Over the past 3 weeks, he had spent hours in neural connection with it, learning the architect's history firsthand. The sphere was warm under his palm, almost alive. They don't believe the protocol will work. Do you believe it will work? The archive asked. Jiwoo was quiet for a moment. I don't know. The architects were more advanced than us in every way, and they failed. But you're right about one thing. We're stubborn. We don't accept defeat easily. That stubbornness may kill you, the archive said, or it may save you. The architects calculated every probability, analyzed every outcome. In the end, their logic led to extinction. Perhaps your logic will lead to survival. Doyen looked up from his work. I've finished the basic framework for the transmission array. It will need to be deployed in every major city on every human world. The synchronization has to be precise. If even 10% of humanity doesn't connect, the resonance won't form properly. How long to build it? Jiwoo asked. 40 hours if we start now and have full industrial support, Doyen said. It'll be ready just before the silence arrives. No margin for error. The archive pulsed and new information flooded into their terminals. I'm uploading the complete neural architecture now. But understand, this connection will be unlike anything humanity has experienced. For a brief time, every connected human will not be an individual. They will be part of a single consciousness. Some may find this terrifying. Terrifying is better than erased, Subin said, entering the room with combat gear strapped across her body. I'm heading up to the fleet. Figured they could use someone who's actually seen what we're up against. Be careful, Mirai said, following her in. Even if you win, you might not remember winning. Then I'll just have to win twice, Subin said with a grim smile. She clasped hands with each of them. See you on the other side, one way or another. After she left, Jiwoo turned back to the archive. I need to understand the protocol better. If I'm going to convince 8 billion people to connect, I need to know exactly what they're connecting to. You wish to experience it directly, the archive said, to feel what the architects felt. Yes. It may damage your mind, the archive warned. You are not designed to hold the memories of millions. I have to understand, Jiwoo insisted. Please. The archive was silent for a moment, then its light pulsed brighter. Very well. But remember, what you are about to experience is not simulation. These are real memories from real beings who chose to be preserved. Their fear, their hope, their desperation. It will be overwhelming. Jiwoo sat in the neural interface chair and placed the connection crown on his head. Doyen monitored the readings nervously. Vitals are stable. Neural activity is normal. Beginning connection in 3, 2, 1. The world exploded into light and memory. Suddenly, Jiwoo was not Jiwoo. He was architect-scientist Velmara, watching the silence approach her homeworld. He was Soldier Cuthran, firing weapons that succeeded and then never existed. He was artist Delakun, painting one final picture before choosing the sleep of forgetting. He was millions of voices, all crying out together, begging to be remembered. He felt their terror as the silence erased colony after colony. Felt their desperation as they built the archive, knowing they were out of time. Felt their grief as they uploaded themselves, leaving their bodies behind in neat rows, choosing preservation over complete erasure. And he felt their hope. Their desperate hope that someday someone would find them. Someone would listen. Someone would learn from their mistakes and do better. Please, they whispered through 12,000 years. Please don't let it all be for nothing. Please remember us. Please survive, Jiwoo gasped as the connection broke. He was back in his own body, tears streaming down his face. Doyen was shouting his name, checking his vitals frantically. I'm okay, Jiwoo managed. I'm okay. I understand now. I understand what we have to do. What did you see? Mirai asked softly. Everything, Jiwoo said. I saw everything. And I know now why the protocol might work for us when it failed for them. The architects were trying to save themselves. But we won't be saving just ourselves. We'll be saving their memory too. We'll be proving that their sacrifice meant something. The archive pulsed warmly. You understand. You carry our memory now, human. The station floated in silence, a dead thing against the dying light of a red star. Dr. Han Jiwoo pressed his gloved hand against the viewing port of the morning calm, watching the massive structure grow larger as they approached. It had been there for thousands of years, waiting in the cold dark of space. Nobody knew who built it. Nobody knew why it was abandoned. It's huge, Kang Mirai said from the pilot seat. Her fingers danced across the controls as she guided their small survey ship closer. Scans show no power signatures. No heat, nothing, Jiwoo nodded slowly. He had spent 15 years studying the ruins of dead civilizations scattered across the galaxy. He had walked through empty cities on frozen worlds and floated through shattered orbital habitats. But something about this station felt different. It felt like it was waiting. There, he said, pointing at the center of the structure. Do you see that energy reading? Park Doyen looked up from his console, his young face creased with confusion. That can't be right. The station is completely dead, but there's a faint energy signature coming from the core level. It doesn't make sense. Choi Subin checked her equipment harness for the third time. As the team's engineer and security officer, she didn't like mysteries. Mysteries got people killed in deep space. Maybe we should report this and wait for a larger team. No, Jiwoo said firmly. We're here now. This is what we came to find. He turned to face his crew. They had been together for 5 years, exploring the edges of known space, looking for answers to questions most people had stopped asking. The architects vanished 12,000 years ago. Every trace of their civilization just stopped. No war, no plague. They were simply gone. This station might tell us why. Mireille brought the ship in close to a docking port that looked ancient but still functional. The clamps engaged with a hollow thud that echoed through the hull. Docking complete. Airlock is sealed, but I'm not reading any atmosphere on the other side. Suits then, Subin said, already pulling on her helmet. Stay close. Stay smart. They cycled through the airlock one by one. The station's corridor beyond was dark until their helmet lights cut through the blackness. The walls were smooth and black, made from a material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Jiwoo ran his scanner along the surface, but it gave him nothing useful. The material wasn't in any database. Which way? Doyen asked, his voice crackling over the comm. Jiwoo checked his readings. Down. The energy signature is coming from below us, deep in the station's center. They walked in single file through corridors that had not seen light in millennia. Their boots made no sound in the airless environment. Every few meters they passed chambers filled with strange equipment, all of it dead and cold. Jiwoo wanted to stop and examine everything, but the pull toward the core was too strong. After an hour of descent, they found the bodies. Oh no, Mirai whispered. The corridor opened into a vast chamber and the floor was covered with them. Hundreds, maybe thousands of alien corpses perfectly preserved in the airless cold. They were tall and thin, with forearms and elongated heads. The architects. Their bodies were arranged in careful rows, as if they had simply laid down and decided to stop living. They weren't killed, Subin said, scanning the nearest body. No wounds. No signs of violence. They just died. Jiwoo knelt beside one of the bodies. Even through his suit, he felt a deep sadness radiating from this place. They chose this. Look at how they're positioned. This was deliberate, but why? Doyen moved between the rows, his scanner recording everything. Why would an entire civilization choose to die? That's what we're here to find out, Jiwoo said, standing. The energy reading is just ahead. They left the chamber of the dead and continued downward. The corridors grew narrower, more focused, as if everything in the station was designed to lead to one central point. Finally, they emerged into a spherical chamber 300 meters across, and in the center, suspended in the empty space, was a perfect black sphere. It was 3 meters in diameter, smooth as glass, and absolutely black. Not the black of shadow or night, but a black that seemed to deny the existence of light itself. Jiwoo's breath caught in his throat. What is that? Mirai asked. I don't know, Jiwoo said, already moving toward it. Subin had installed guide cables across the chamber, and he pulled himself along them in the zero gravity. Scans aren't working, Doyen reported. The instruments won't acknowledge it exists. Like it's not even there, but it was there. Jiwoo could see it, could feel its presence like a weight in his mind. He reached the sphere and floated beside it. Up close, it was even more impossible. The surface seemed perfectly smooth, but also infinitely deep, as if he was looking into an abyss that went on forever. Jiwoo, we should go, Subin said over the comm. We've recorded everything. We can come back with better equipment. But Jiwoo wasn't listening. He reached out with one gloved hand and placed it against the sphere's surface. It was warm. In this frozen station where nothing had lived for 12,000 years, this object was warm. What happened to you? He whispered, not really expecting an answer. What were you running from? The sphere pulsed. It was just once, a single ripple of light that flowed across its surface like a wave. And then every dead system in the station came alive. Lights flickered on in sequence, spreading out from the chamber in all directions. The walls began to hum with power. Ancient computers woke from their long sleep and started processing data. What did you do? Mirai shouted, I don't know. Jiwoo pulled his hand back, but it was too late. The sphere was fully awake now, glowing with a soft internal light that pulsed like a heartbeat. And then it spoke. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, massive and ancient and tired beyond measure. It spoke in perfect Korean, which should have been impossible. The architects had been dead for 12,000 years. They couldn't have known human languages. We remember, the voice said, and Jiwoo felt tears streaming down his face inside his helmet. We have waited so long. We remember everything. And now you must remember too. The sphere pulsed again, brighter this time, and information began flooding into their suit computers faster than their systems could process. Images of dying stars, equations that made no sense. A single word repeated over and over in 1,000 dead languages. Silence, silence, silence. The station is sealing itself. Sobin shouted. Bulkheads are closing everywhere. Jiwoo stared at the sphere, at this impossible object that had waited 12,000 years for someone to speak to it.
What are you?
He asked. The voice answered, and this time it sounded almost sad. We are the last memory of the architects. We are their warning. We are their hope. And now we are awake. Now the silence will know you are here. We are so sorry.